You have been hosting Family Feud for 15 seasons. How are you marking this moment?
It's 15 years. Yeah, y'all call them seasons, they're years, man. It's a long time, you know. It's like, at first they were kind of blowing by, but now I kind of feel them all now, you know. It's 15 years, it's a long time to do anything, especially on television. You don't get to stay on television for 15 years at nothing.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, the show, you know, it's an iconic show when I had it, you know, even though it wasn't, I guess it had fallen off just like most stuff does after a while. But the original producers and the original executive producer, Gabby Johnson, she gave me the free reins. She said, okay, do it your way. And they allowed me to put my own little stamp on the show, you know, that was, I think, what happens on this show don't happen on any other game show. You know, that's such an interaction with the contestants that it kind of makes it different from most. And I think that's the magic to this. It's the interaction with the contestants. I formulate relationships with them, storylines, you know, allow them to be human. And I don't just let them say anything. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something that the viewers love the most is your hilarious one-liners to some of the contestants' answers. What is your rehearsal process?
Rehearsal?
Do you have one?
They've been trying to get me to come to rehearsal for 15 years. They just quit asking. I told them if I come to rehearsal, I'm going to need 2 checks. I don't think they want to do that. No, I don't rehearse at all. Wow. There's no, I don't get the questions beforehand. I don't know what the answers are on the board. I get nothing. I mean, when I read the question, I'm flipping it over, you know, for the first time at that podium, you know, that's really it. And so there's no rehearsal, you know, it's just so. I'm pretty fortunate, man, in that this format is kind of like tailor-made for my gift. You know, I'm very quick. And so it's kind of tailor-made to my gift. And then the people that run the show, the director, Ken, that's been with me from the beginning, and all the producers, and even Fremantle, you know, they just let me do it, you know. It takes a little bit of time to get it done, but, you know, it's created some magical moments, you know, because they just let me, you know.
Well, and you're one of a kind, and that's why you've been the reigning, outstanding show host, among so many other things. I was surprised to learn that you tape 4 shows a day, 4 days a week. What is something that these loyal viewers might be surprised to learn about the behind the scenes?
Well, when I first got this show, we did 8 shows a day.
Wow.
3 days a week. We did Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I did 8 shows a day. I did 24 in a week. And I almost killed myself. And then we got it down to 6 shows a day. And then that was murder's row for me after a while because of the way I work, you know. Okay. I'm not just reading the questions, you know. It's actually a show for me. Every time I come around the corner, it's a show for me. And I don't know if the audience realizes that, you know, we're here, let's say we shoot 4 a day, right? Let's say I come out in this suit. It takes about an hour, hour 10 to shoot an episode. I go back, and 20 minutes later, I walk back out with another suit. Well, for me, it's got to be tomorrow. Now, we got to convince these contestants that it's tomorrow also. But the audience is here. And it's got to be a tomorrow for them. And I don't know if they know the real energy that it takes to make this feel like a new day. I got to come around here like I've never seen these people, like I haven't been out here today. And to produce that energy over and over is taxing. It's a little taxing. How
do you do it? It just comes from within?
Well, there's a lot to do with their paycheck. A lot to do with that. That's really...
See, that's the one-liner I'm talking about that the people love.
You know, that's...
But, you know, I mean, speaking of the audience, something that I love that we see on social media is these viral sort of motivational speeches that you give to the audience in between tapings. Where does that inspiration come from?
That's really a promise I made, you know. When I was really in a bad way, in a bad shape, you know, I was homeless. I was living in my car. I told God, I said, if you let me make it when I get there, I'm going to tell everybody about you. So that's a promise I made. So you know, when people come to see me, I know they come to laugh, but I also try to drop them a couple of jewels, or little gems, stuff I've learned the way. You know, I used to really not understand why my life was the way it was. I just could not understand why I had to be homeless that long, why I had to have so many hardships. And now I get it, because he knew when he got me to where I was going to be, I would have a story to tell. And most people are going through some form of hardship in their life. Everybody. You know, my father used to say, you either coming out of a storm, you either in a storm, or you on your way to a storm. So just buckle up, partner, because it ain't gonna stay sunny always. And so I just try to give people little jewels and stuff that I've learned along the way, maybe help them out, you know.
I love that you mentioned your father, because at the root of this game show is family. It's the bonding that you experience on the stage, at home, in the audience. How important is that to you?
Well, I mean, you know, look, I came from a great family. I always had a mom and a dad. You know, my father was just a rugged man. My mother was very spiritual. So I got to both sides. My father made me a man. My mother made me spiritual. So I got both sides of the world, you know. When prayer didn't work, fighting was the alternative. It was kind of just had to do it, you know. But I watch families come on the show, and I can see how important it is to them. You know, like, you ask people what they're going to do with the money, the majority of people would always say, we're going to take a family vacation, you know. Family's important. You know, I had one of the most touching moments on the show was this guy was sweating profusely. He had to change his shirt between shows, and they just couldn't win the money. In the third show, he finally won the money, and he broke down. But before that, he said, Steve, I got to win this money. I'm terminally ill, and I can't get insurance, and I need this $20,000 to leave for my family. And that man won $20,000. He fell on his knees, you know. That was a great moment for him. But I saw what it was, you know. Like, you know, look, I've been doing well for quite some time, so $20,000. But that changes a lot of things for a lot of people. And so it starts to get important to a lot of people. And family, they come on here, you know, they got plans for this money, you know. If I get this money, I'm going to give my son this $5,000 so he can start his video company. If I win this money, you know, I'm going to put a down payment on a car. I'm going to pay off a student loan. You go, wow, you know, and it just starts to feel that way. And you know, you root for the families, you know.
What is your personal favorite moment in the show's history?
I got about 32 of them, so.
Oh, my age, perfect. One for every year.
I don't know. It's so many, man. Most of the stuff one of my favorite answers was, it went viral too. I was asking this old black guy, and his wife was sitting next to him. A lot of answers were on the board, and the question was, name something that's bigger on your wife than it should be. And boy, when I got to this old man, he was on the end. He opened his coat, he went, and I could see the pain this man was in. And I said, and she was right there. And then he said, he looked up at that board and he said, Steve, her heart. Oh. And it was up there. That was one of my favorite answers because, you know, I'm waiting on him to say butt, you know, thighs.
That's what I was waiting for, the punchline.
Stomach. You know, I'm waiting on one of them, and I'm telling you, man, this dude right here is going to have a rough ride home when he say that. And the woman was just, you know. And I said, man, this dude. And he said her heart. That was one of my favorite. I've actually played that back in my phone. Really? Yeah, because this dude was torn. He was sitting there struggling. He was looking at that board, man. And he said that was one of my favorite moments.
Well, I mean, just in the way that you were telling that story, it's like not only do you have these great one-liners, you have these looks that just totally transform a moment. Yeah. If someone says something completely outlandish or wacky, you just give one look and the viewers, we melt into laughter.
But you know,
can you give us that look?
Well, I mean, depends. See, that's what I'm saying, that the show is tailor-made for what I do. You know, as a stand-up comedian, for years, man, back in the Kings of Comedy and all of that, man, my facial expressions were like, when I was a little boy, when all I dreamed about was being on TV, my father made me a peach crate that I could stand on next to him every morning, and he would let me put shaving cream on and gave me a popsicle stick, and I would stand there and shave next to my father. Well, when he'd leave and go to work, I was practicing my TV show in the mirror. Wow. And all I would do in that mirror was make faces. That's all I did. Surprise, shock, look stupid, what the hell are you talking about? And
what did your dad think of that?
Well, he was at work. My mom used to make me get on because I was late for school every day. Because I was practicing the Steve Harvey show. Wow. And so my facial expressions, I know how to control my face muscles. I know how to give a look without a word. And so it's kind of, it got me in a lot of trouble, as a young man and as a younger man and women, and it's not really.
But that's what makes your style, part of what makes your style so unique, and part of what makes this show thrive the way it does. Why do you think people are so loyal to this show season after season?
First of all, it's a show that you can play at home, you can play alone. And then secondly, they know that what I'm going to do, the secret that I have told very few people, it's out now because, look, I've been doing this 15 years. You know the secret to this show? I say what I know the people at home are thinking. I know whatever they're thinking at home, that's what I say. Because look, all these answers, they're not on this board. There's no need of me turning this. Let's see if it's up there. It's not. It's not. Your answer was dumb enough to not be on nobody's board. So now the joke is, why did you say that?
Right.
And that's what the shining moments on this show is the bad answers. And you're going to get them. Because look, these are not factual questions we're asking you.
Right. So describe the ideal Family Feud contestant.
For me, I love the guy that's slightly arrogant, that you can see he's on TV posturing, looking out in the crowd, waving at somebody he know. I like that dude because I know he ain't gonna know nothing. And I know that real arrogant attitude. Like you'll see them before the show, they're dancing, all this here. And I'll be back in the back looking at him going, that's gonna be my target right there. Because he's not gonna know any of this. Oh, that little arrogance is going to go out the window so fast because we're going to ask you something so ignorant that there's no way you can know it. And that's my favorite contestant. I like that arrogant guy who thinks he's, got all the answers.
And that's the dynamic we like to watch at home, too, by the way.
Dude, he makes me shine.
What are the 3 words that come to mind when you think of Family Feud?
I mean, first for me is laughs. I'm out here to do one thing. My nature is a stand-up, so I'm out here to produce laughter. Then I try to find great storylines and heartfelt moments. If somebody's winning for a big reason or a kid is on the show trying to get through college, I try to point that out. And that's why I ask so many questions about what they do, so there's a vested interest in the show. So I think heartfelt moments, I think laughter, those are the 2 top. And then, I just build a bond. So when a family wins, you want to come back tomorrow to see this family. Right. And when I go down the line, I don't forget anything. I know where you work. I know what's wrong with you. I know if you didn't get an answer yesterday. If every time we came to you, there was an X, I remember that.
Consistency.
Yes.
And so with all of your Emmys, all of your accolades, at home, when you're playing game night with the fam, are you expected to host?
No, that's the last thing they know to do to me. Their favorite game at home is Uno and that game where you flip it.
Oh, yeah, heads up.
That right there, I dominate that game, especially if you do animals, because I'm huge in that department. But hosting, no. And then they don't like to play Uno with me because I'm a card shark, so they don't like that.
Well, speaking of competition, I host a lot of the game shows at the Today Show, and the hosts, Hoda and Jenna, are very competitive. They talk over each other. Any advice for me as a host?
Well, you want advice on being a good host? See, you seem like a really, like a sweetheart of a person, but to be a great host, you have to be compelling.
Yeah.
You gotta be willing to do stuff don't nobody else do. That's my trademark. I do what nobody else does. You got to be compelling. So I don't know if you can do that with them because they're the stars of the show, so you can't make them look bad. I make people look bad all the time. That might not be in your best interest.
No, not yet. We'll manifest that one day.
Yeah.
Right.
I go up there. If I hosted the show with them, I'd do both of them. I don't care.
Well,
I have a life.
That's true.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.